Hit it!
Okay, it is now the next morning, 11:51 a.m. to be exact, on the next morning. And here we are. I have just blown off the rubber mat. Now we are going to place it. Now we are going to begin reassembling the key mechanism. What I'll do is I'll start by placing... I'll make sure that the rubber mat is correctly aligned. The side that looks like this goes down, and the side that looks like this faces up. This little rectangular cutout here is supposed to match with this rectangular cutout right there. And someone at IBM messed up and put this nifty crinkle in there. Oh well, I'm just going to live with it. Okay, so I'm going to start by laying it down just like so, kinda. Just like so, and basically everything will fall into place as this gets set down. As all of the screw holes will, all of the little screws will begin peeking through. And basically you just gently press this, press this down and manipulate it into position. Now it might take a little bit of finagling, but it is certainly, that is certainly a doable thing. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to reinstall our top membrane layer. This is the one with the lock lights on it. So, but before we need to do that, we need to blow or wipe this membrane layer off. So that way we do not get dust, dirt, contaminants, or generally anything nasty on there that really doesn't need to be on there or in a keyboard for any reason at all whatsoever at any time. So I'm literally just going to take a paper towel and wipe this thing down. I think that should be sufficient. That's my stereo. I've got it switched on right now. But reinstalling membrane layer is basically pretty simple. Make sure the lock lights go into the rectangular cutout. The holes in the membrane layers are a lot bigger than the holes in the rubber mat. However, it all should line up. This layer has a dimensional mismatch. I just tampered with the buckling spring, so I'll have to pull this up and whatnot. Let's see. If you mess with the buckling springs at all, just go ahead. If you mess with the buckling springs before you manage to get the back plate screwed down and everything like that, your best bet is to go ahead, stop where you are, pull the key mechanism apart again, and check your work. Because the last thing you want to do is end up with a really important key not working right. Now, there is another modification you can do to the key mechanism at the time of reassembly, and that is to leave the rubber mat out of the keyboard. Now, there will definitely be some advantages and disadvantages to that depending on how you look at things and what your opinions are in regards to modeling keyboards. If you like your keyboard LOUD loud, then the rubber mat mod's for you. You basically just, at the time of reassembly, when you're reassembling the key mechanism, you don't reinstall the rubber mat. Now, it causes the key field to be sharper, more tactile, more tactile response. You get increased noise from the keyboard, and you get more of a metallic pinging and ringing, as it like you would get from a Model F keyboard. But at the same time, reassembling the keyboard correctly is harder because of the fact that you don't have the rubber mat to kind of weigh everything down and keep things where they should be. And you might end up with flippers getting knocked out of place during the reassembly process and whatnot. I did this modification on the Model M. I have it attached to my main computer right now, and I had to take the keyboard. I had to take the key mechanism apart 2 or 3 times before I got everything set up just the way I wanted it, and even then it's still not exactly right because the numlock key doesn't work. But who presses numlock? Now we're going to reinstall our separator. And this does exactly what you think it might do. Separates the 2 membrane layers. It does look like something's up with our membranes, but this will probably flatten out whenever we reinstall the metal backplate. And we have a connector here that services the upper keyboard, the upper membrane. And now I'm just going to go ahead and wipe down our lower membrane. This thing is a really wide connector on it, reminiscent of a parallel port. And we basically set this down on the keyboard just like we did the previous layers. You'll have to move this around. You'll have to move this around the tab here. That's brought out by the upper membrane, the lower membrane layer. I'm using upper because I have the key mechanism upside down. And in regards to the rubber mat mod, another thing that might happen is you might have some keys that respond erratically to key press events. But now it is time to reinstall the metal backplate that goes onto the keyboard. And now there should be guides on here to help you line everything up. There should be guides on here to help you line everything up. At least you can guide yourself in using the screw holes. And everything is there. And now comes the challenging part. And this is where I highly recommend clamps to help hold the keyboard mechanism together, the key mech together. Okay, so I found out what I needed to do. What I did is I started on this side of the keyboard, pinched it together in the tallest bolt, the screw sticking out of the back plate the most. I took a washer, put it on there, and I took a nut and I put it on there, and I manually got it started with my hands. And then I took a 5/32 socket and tightened it down. Now, do not over tighten these screws. it is very possible to strip the threads on these screws. Been there, done that, went back and fixed it, not fun. Especially whenever it happens to fall right in the middle of the, especially whenever it happens to fall right smack in the middle of the keyboard. So yeah, well, once I did that, what I did is I took the nut, but what I did is once I got that nut in there and started, I took the 5/32 driver and tightened it down, and what that did is it pulled more bolts, more screws through the key mechanism. There's one right there that needs a little bit of corrective action, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. But what that did is it pulled more bolts, more screws through the keyboard mechanism and through the back plate, which enabled me to get to those. And as I tightened those down, it caused more screws to be pulled through the keyboard mechanism, the key mech, and it becomes a self-regenerative cycle. Basically, as I put bolts in, tighten things down, it causes screws to get pulled to the keyframe. It causes screws to get pulled through the keyboard mechanism and through the holes in the back plate, which enables me to get to them and tighten those down, pulling more through and whatnot. And I think you can imagine the cycle from there, but looks like we're not going to need the clamps today. And reassembling this so far is going a lot easier than reassembling my 1988 Model M, which is bolt and rubber mat modded. Probably because the rubber mat is here on this one and it's holding everything down and in position because it's keeping weight on the buckling spring assemblies, which stops them from shifting. So, and also, under no circumstances should you ever turn the key mechanism back over until you've gotten most of these screw assemblies put together and tightened down. Because if you turn it over before then, you're going to end up, it's like all that weight is going to be taken off of the back of the buckling spring assemblies, and everything is going to shift, and you're going to have a bad time because you're going to have to take the entire keyboard mechanism all apart again, because you're going to have to take the whole keyboard mechanism apart again to get everything reseated back in place. And that's an hour and a half time sink right. Like that's an hour and a half time sink right there. So yeah, getting one of these bolt mods perfected is not something for somebody with a lack of patience. I can tell you that right now. Okay, we are back several hours later. I have went and rinsed and dried all of the keys. Now, what I did to rinse the keys, well, we're going to call them the key assemblies. What I did to do that is, wait, I am jumping way over to the wrong point of the video. Okay. Keyboard mechanism is back together completely. And keyboard mechanism is totally back together. And yeah. That was definitely one of the more challenging things in the world to mess with. So, yeah. Certainly one of the more challenging things. And, excuse the noise, that's my amplifier. I've got a phone right next to it that appears to be doing some kind of a data transfer. And I'm just going to in the process I stripped out this screw, which this thing, I wouldn't call this screw critical. I would call the situation annoying. This is too small to show on camera, but there is a single thread here that's stripped out, and that is just enough to make it to where that nut can't grab onto that screw like it has to. That's because I over-tightened it. But thankfully, that's where this final extra screw assembly comes into play. I can just take it out and I can pull it apart. Then I can turn the entire, and then I can knock stuff over. And then I can take the screw and go ahead and drive it into the keyboard. Go ahead and drive it into the keyboard. And this will be very easy because the screw won't fall over like it just did. This will be a lot easier because I've already threaded the screws in. This is a ratcheting screwdriver. These things are nice. If you don't have one, get one. Yeah, mine is from Tractor Supply, and these things are nice. So now we're going to turn the keyboard mechanism upside down once again. Find the screw we just drove through the keyboard. Almost lose the washer, chasing it halfway across the table. And we're going to grab it, and we're going to grab it again, put it where it's supposed to go. I'm going to go ahead and put the nut down on top of that. And then we're going to go ahead and thread the nut into place. And we're going to grab our 5/32nd, and then we're going to unintentionally grab our 7/32 socket. Then we're going to actually grab our 5/32 socket and go ahead and tighten that down, avoiding over-tightening it, so that way we can actually use it. Now the keyboard mechanism is fully reassembled once again. Yay. Okay. So, one thing I have noticed here is it seems that with the rubber mat, it kind of likes to catch and hold some of these buckling springs in place. So if you decide to do the rubber mat mod, which is removing the rubber mat for increased tactility more noise, one good way you can check to see if keys are stuck, like if buckling springs are stuck, is literally this. But that seems to only be applicable with the rubber mat mod. Not with this, because there's been springs that appear stuck, but I put a key in them. Shout out to the escape key off of the keyboard behind me, and it clicks and whatnot. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to drop the keyboard assembly back into the keyboard temporarily. Just go ahead and latch it down so that way it's all secure. I'm not going to go as far as to reinstall the controller or anything like that. But I will go ahead and take keys and begin installing them on the keyboard. So, right arrow, and the way I process these keys is I went ahead and drained the water off. I went ahead and drained the containers and emptied them into a sink with a strainer installed in the drain. Yeah, with the strainer installed in the drain so that way the keys don't go down into the garbage disposal, which would be bad. And then I went and basically rinsed all of the keys with cold water. Rinsed all of the keys with good cold water. And these key bases, once they were rinsed with cold water, they went right back into the container they came out of. And I should not have put a key there. Okay, yeah, this spot right here is a numpad 0. Okay. So, but the actual key tops, you know, the parts that fit over the top, those, I scrubbed the top of those and I scrubbed the top of those and the 5 sides to remove whatever dirt and oils and junk I could. Now, not all the keys came out looking brand new because, again, I suspect that this keyboard was in use in an automotive shop, either attached to a standard PC that was used in day-to-day shop activities, or as part of a system. Or as part of a system that was doing some important function, such as a tire balancer, or some kind of a programming system for a module, whether it be the body control module, powertrain control module, transmission control module, or engine control module. Now, the powertrain control module is the engine and transmission control modules combined. So, because engine and transmission make up about 95%. The engine and transmission and their controlling subsystems make up about 95% of the powertrain, with the other 5% of the powertrain being axles and drive shafts and differentials and things like that. So yeah, I imagine that some of these keys have had oil and residues and stuff on them that will stain. So yeah. Interesting way. It's interesting how that clicks like that. But I imagine that'll change as we put the keyboard together and get keys and everything installed on it. Besides, besides, the keyboard isn't fully assembled yet. So key sounds and whatnot are all subject to change. Registered trademark. Yeah, but once I rinsed washed and rinsed all of the keys and everything like that. I took them out to the garage and used my air blower, the Comfy Cleaner 2.0, to basically force basically create compressed air and force it into every nook and cranny of every piece of every key assembly. And its operation also generates heat. So after a short time of operation, you not only get compressed air, but heated compressed air. I'd say somewhere within the 110 to 150. I'd say somewhere within the realm of 100 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit or so. Which at that point it was basically a hand dryer for keyboard keys. And that really helped with the key bases, because these things have all kinds of nooks and crannies in them like you would not believe. So, but what I'm doing is, as I put each key on, I press it to verify that it works as intended. And I'm just going to spot check a random thing here. Yeah, the noise this keyboard is making is certainly a whole lot less than the noise my keyboard makes. Well, these are both my keyboards. It's just that what I'm talking about is currently attached to my main computer. I seem to be referencing that key a lot. Keyboard. Keyboard. I don't know. I've been staring at a Model M far too long in the past 48 hours. And there's my phone generating. I don't know what kind of noise you would call it. I know that old CDMA. I know that old the older cell phones would generate pink noise. But it's basically interference from the data modem and from the. It's basically interference from noise being generated by the cellular modem in the phone being amplified. And of course, since you have a giant metal antenna right next to an amplifier with giant cables and stuff in it and whatnot, well, you basically have an open air. You basically end up with an open air inductor. Yeah, I've been. And actually, a fairly strong idea of the QWERTY keyboard layout, especially that of an IBM design. And I'm about to go turn that thing off. Okay, shut up. Anyways, yeah, I have a fairly strong idea of where the keys should be, especially on a QWERTY layout. For the most part, there are some really weird. There are some keys, such as the bracket keys, and left and right. I don't know what you would call them, brace keys. They look like arrows without the stem on the bottom. I've got a keyboard right behind me, and I can reference photos on my phone. Reassembly of this thing was a little bit of a trick because whenever I did the spring shaker test, that's what I'm going to call it, the spring shaker test, a whole bunch of the springs seemed to be stuck, and so I stopped what I was doing, and I had the key mech put almost completely back together. But I stopped and took the whole thing apart, and nothing was out of place. So I just simply assumed that it was part of the different... I just simply assumed that it was part of what I was doing. Let's see. ZXCVBM. ZXCVBM. Left brace. Right brace. Okay. But as I air dried the keys, I went ahead and put them into new containers that weren't wet. I put them in the new containers that were not wet. Houston, we may have a problem. There is not a hole in the keyframe. I wonder why my numbers were coming up. No wonder why things were being a bit weird. I'm going to go ahead and... Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and back that out of the keyframe. Well then, okay, that's why some things were coming up a bit weird, and I hope I didn't just warp the keyframe. Okay, yeah, that might be a bit of a problem. Okay, yeah, that signal will probably get better with time and use. Let's see. There we go. So, looks like our keyboard is fully operational. There we go. So now So now I'm going to go ahead and take that off and put this case component on top of a much inferior keyboard. Go ahead and get our wooden blocks back out because we need to turn this upside down one last time. Go ahead and reinstall our controller. Well, at least that's the intended effect. At least that's the intended effect. Darn it. Okay, you go there. You go there. Don't move. Okay. So, now for our controller, which maybe I shouldn't have tried to put the keyboard upside down. It's okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and put our cable back in for the numlock lights. If I remember how it went. I think it went like this. Yeah, it did. Okay. Now it's a pretty simple act of finding the appropriate connection on the controller and just hooking everything back up. Of course, as soon as I turn the camera off, things begin working properly. Okay. Let's go ahead and grab our little screw here that we took out of the keyboard more than 24 hours ago. Go ahead and put it right back through its designated hole. And put the grounding cable down on top of that. Go ahead and go ahead and thread our nut back onto the screw. It'll come up here like this. We'll use a pair of duckbill pliers to grab a hold of that, and our handy dandy convenient flathead screwdriver if I can ever find it again. And then our handy dandy easy convenient flathead screwdriver will do the tightening. There we go. Now, on my 1988 Model M, this is a literal copper grounding strap that goes right here, and I think they used a physical cable going between the numlock lights and the controller. No, they didn't. They used this ribbon. But yeah, IBM was starting to cut costs by about 1989, 1990, probably in preparation for the release of the IBM PS1 home computer system. Okay, let's go ahead and seated our controller back in. I can't really show that on video, mainly because it's way down in a dark corner of the keyboard case, and yeah, mainly because it's way down in a deep dark corner of the keyboard case, and I can't really show that because, well, it's physically impossible to put the camera in a spot where I can actually get to it. Okay, so now it's time to go ahead and throw the keyboard case back together. So we'll just set the thing upside down, and I'll go ahead and take the first bolt and Make sure our ratchet is in the business of putting things on today, which it does seem to be. Go ahead and snug that up. And go ahead and drop our other 3 bolts in. Probably will need tweezers or lots of patience to get those to go in correctly. And there we go. Hello. Yeah, I got a couple of key tops switched around. I think there might be a little bit of a clearance problem between our tilde and 1 keys. And then again, this is why you do testing. This is why you test things to make sure that they'll fit. IBM's tooling at the time may have been getting a little bit weak by 1989. Nice. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to attach this keyboard to a system and actually test it out. Okay, I have the keyboard hooked up to a computer now, so I'm going to go ahead and switch it on. Looks like our keyboard controller just initialized. Maybe not quite. There we go. Go ahead and hop on over into the BIOS. And we are in the BIOS. I'm just going to have a look around, make sure that our keys are working properly. Okay, go ahead and break out a setup. And yep, this thing is definitely in a whole lot better condition than what it was a couple days ago. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to go to a keyboard checker website and watch as the camera battery decides it has other plans for us. So And we're in. Go and wait on the stuff to start up. Okay, timekeeper next. Yeah, I know my time's not limited. That's because I'm the admin of the system. You can't do anything about it. So, let's just hope the camera battery survives long enough. Okay. Keyboard checker. Simply press any key on your keyboard. Okay, this isn't a friggin' Mac. Launch the tester. Now this thing right here is none. I can get a click I can get a good click alright. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that. Escape. Okay, F7 works. F12 works. Print screen. Yep. Scroll lock. Pause. Home was being weird for a moment. Okay. Space bar, Alt, and Control. So this keyboard is fully functional. Now, if the camera battery will survive long enough, let's go to one of the best YouTube channels on YouTube. And yep, I typed that in without, yeah, I typed that whole channel URL in right there. So, let me see, search channel, Model M. Yeah. So, and shut down, turn that off. And there it went.